at the Environmental Finance Center at Syracuse University. On behalf of the EFCN network, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar titled Water System Partnerships and Regionalization System Mergers. I will be providing some technical support for today's session. Please take a moment to observe your GoToWebinar control panel. Most of the functions are self-explanatory, but I'd like to draw your attention to the questions section on your control panel. During today's session, you will all be kept on mute to ensure audio quality and minimize background noise. Should you have a question, please type it into the GoToWebinar question dialog box. We will be holding all questions until the end of today's presentation to ensure that we end on time. Today's presenter has consented to share his presentation slides with you, and we will make these slides available to you, as well as a video recording following the webinar on the EFCN website, which is efcnetwork.org. You will find this video under past trainings and today's date. Before I start, I'd like to do a quick sound check. David, are you there?
Right here, Tara, thanks.
Great. Fred, are you there?
Yes, right here, thank you.
Great, we can hear you. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce David Tucker, Project Director at the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina. David, I'm making you presenter now. You should get a pop-up window in just a second.
Very good. Thanks very much, Tara. And while that is coming up, all right. Sorry for the delay here, folks. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today, and thanks very much for tuning in for our webinar. I am David Tucker, a project director here at the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And in just a minute, I'll be introducing our featured speaker for this webinar, Fred Hanna, who is a senior project manager with URS Corporation in Columbia, South Carolina. Fred's been a big help to the EFC network in the past, was a guest speaker at one of our workshops in South Carolina earlier in the project, and we're thrilled to have him here today to talk to us about system mergers in the context of water system partnerships and regionalization. And this is the second in a series of 4 webinars about water system partnership and regionalization. These are, of course, the different institutions involved today, and this is part of a larger project that we've been doing on a national basis, the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project. It's under a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, who have been our generous funders for the project. And, oops, sorry about that. A little technical fumbling here. The EFC network has, with this project, provided training, workshops, and webinars and direct technical assistance to small water systems around the country in all 50 states and all 5 territories. Defining a small water system in this context is serving 10,000 or fewer people. And we have provided services in 7 areas under the project: asset management, water loss reduction, water system collaboration, today's topic area, fiscal planning and rate setting, energy management, funding coordination, and managerial and financial leadership. And we just want to make all of you who are on the call today aware of the fact that if you are a small drinking water system, again serving 10,000 or fewer people, you are welcome to go to our project website. You can see the URL up top of that slide in front of you. And to request free direct technical assistance under the grant in any of those 7 categories. As far as our Environmental Finance Center here at UNC, we're dedicated to enhancing the ability of governments and organizations to provide environmental programs and services in fair, effective, and financially sustainable ways. We do it across a variety of different environmental media, including drinking water and wastewater, today's topic. And that's our website address right there. And all of these slides and the recording of the video will be made available subsequently to all participants and all registrants for today's webinar. And at this point, we'd like to launch just a couple of poll questions here and get to know you, our audience, a little bit better. So Tara, if you wouldn't mind launching that first poll question now, that would be great.
Of course.
So please select one of these and let us know a little bit about who it is you're working for. And we'll give you a little time to respond to that, and then we'll put the results up on the screen for everyone to see so we can get to know each other better here today. And while you're doing that, I'll also say I should have mentioned that here in the room with me in Chapel Hill is my good colleague Francine Stefan, who is our program coordinator for the Small Systems Project at our EFC. And Francine, some of you may have already interacted with. It's always such a huge help with this project. Tara, are we getting a bunch of responses in?
Yep, we've had a good amount. I'll close this now, and here are the results for that.
Oh, very good. Well, it's interesting. A lot of you are with state, territorial, and federal government agencies, and we see quite a few of you with water systems as well, which is great. And we're happy to have all of you here in attendance. Happy to have all of you, of course, go to the project website and the UNC and Syracuse EFC websites and take advantage of whatever resources are available there. But the direct technical assistance is specifically for the small systems. Tara, thanks for throwing that up on the screen there. And let's launch the second poll question now.
Okay.
Very good. And again, attendees, please select one of these, whether you are a small system, 10,000 or fewer people served. We don't mean connections here. We mean number of people served. Or more than 10,000 or not a water system. So again, be interesting to get to know you, our audience, a little better here before Fred gives us the meat and potatoes of today's webinar.
We'll give it just a few more seconds.
Very good. And while that's coming in, let me say I know there is winter weather in a number of places around the country today, so I hope all of you, our attendees, are staying warm and dry and safe out there. All right, so over half of you are not a water system, which is fine, but a lot of you are, which is great. We're happy to reach all of you with today's webinar. And at that point, let me go ahead and turn things over to Fred Hanna of URS. And Fred's going to be giving us a very interesting talk about system mergers today. Any questions you have, remember, as Tara was saying earlier, that you can type them into your question box. And if Tara can respond to you quickly by typing back a response, she will. Otherwise, she'll bring up the questions with Fred when there's a break in the action there. And Francine and I are going to sign off now from UNC-Chapel Hill. But it's been great being with you all today, and enjoy the rest of the webinar, and we're sure it's going to be a great one. Thanks very much, everyone, and thank you, Fred.
All right, Fred, I'm making you a presenter now.
Okay, and thank you, David, Tara, and Francine. I will pull up my slides here. They should be coming up momentarily. My name is Fred Hanna. I'm a senior project manager with URS Corporation in Columbia, South Carolina, and wanted to present to you a case study on the Lowcountry Regional Water System, which was a project that went from concept approval in March of 2011 to implementation June 1st of 2013. Just wanted to check, Tara, are you seeing my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, good, very good. Well, we'll proceed then. Just to give you some background information, this project was located in Hampton County, South Carolina. Hampton County is in the lower part of the state of South Carolina. And to give you a little bit of background information on the county and some of the municipalities that are in the water wastewater, in Hampton County, there are 8 municipal systems. The county does not operate a water wastewater system, but certainly particularly from an economic development perspective and just from a safe drinking water perspective, has a very strong interest and played a key role in this project. The demographics of the county, just to give you some feel, is by and large a rural county, population of 20,000 countywide. The growth rate is fairly flat according to the latest U.S. Census figures, and there is some population of economically disadvantaged people that the water system serve. The area is, however, on the edge of adjacent development that has been occurring in the Beaufort, Hilton Head, Savannah area and the I-95 corridor. Also, there has been a lot of interest in speculative development for industrial sites and a lot of formal site certification going on a number of the large tracts of land in the county adjacent to I-95 in anticipation of additional port being opened in Savannah. And then certainly the county, as we mentioned, is very interested in recruiting industry to the area. But one of the issues that brought about this study is the water and wastewater systems in the county. And we'll get into some of the specifics on that in the upcoming slides, but I want to make sure you have a background. URS was commissioned to study and evaluate the area for regionalization, and the initial study had quite a broad group of stakeholders that participated in the funding for that study. South Carolina Department of Commerce, the South Carolina Budget and Control Board, South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control at the state level, and on the regional level, the Lowcountry Council of Governments, which was a very key part of the team. The 6 municipalities that were initially in the study, the county and the local power company, also contributed to the funding of the initial study. The initial scope that we were requested to focus on was on interconnecting these systems, and the feeling was that some others had interconnected their systems with water and wastewater connections, and so it might make some sense for them to look at making interconnections, physical interconnections of their pipes, but with each system continuing to maintain, own, and operate their separate municipal systems. However, during the data gathering, the initial phases of the project, and the analysis, it was determined that the scope needed to have some revision to it, as it did not appear that the interconnections of the system were really going to give them any short-term benefits, and certainly were not going to resolve some of the major issues they had. While at the same time, just physically interconnecting the systems can be expensive, and if you don't have a high growth rate, you can contribute to other types of water quality issues. So we went back, once the study was initiated, we went back to the representatives from each of the sponsors and reported to them our findings, and recommended that the scope be changed to focus more on the operational and financial issues that they were having with the systems. There seemed to be no or very little water and wastewater capacity in its broadest sense in place to plan for and achieve and continue to provide safe drinking water for the county. So the focus of the study was revised to direct our attention to acquiring and maintaining the technical, financial, managerial capabilities necessary to achieve sustainable water systems. And some of the symptoms that were evident in our initial data gathering was, on the technical side, there was inadequate and deteriorated infrastructure, a lack of operations and maintenance certifications, and lack of operator training. On the financial side, there was a history of low rates, and none of the rate-making decisions were based on cost, so there was no cost-based pricing of their rates. We've mentioned to some degree a number of economically disadvantaged consumers. And on the managerial side, there was limited part-time management attention, lack of long-term water system planning, and really lack of focus on, not providing the attention to the water systems that they needed from an operational perspective. So the benefits of this revised approach was that we asked each of the participants to agree with this new approach. The benefits were that hopefully this approach would solve the operational issues and then help them to develop the capacity in the broadest sense, not only to make their systems improve operationally, but also to provide economic infrastructure for economic development and growth. So some of the specific issues, and we'll talk about some of the also the indicators of those specific issues that each of the systems was facing. Regulatory compliance. At any one time, the majority of the participants were under consent orders from DHEC. Financial viability was an issue, and from looking at those towns that had completed audit reports, it was obvious that there were some financial issues associated with understanding their costs and rates. Operational sustainability, not having necessary operational plans ready and on the shelf. Managerial effectiveness, including not having appropriate licenses and certifications in place. And the biggest, I guess, issue that we had to address was to bring about the regionalization, was to make sure we had the political will necessary to make the change. And in order to bring that about, there was a lot of education, discussion and dialogue, public involvement, but also we asked each participant to pass successive resolutions as we went through the process that became more and more engaging as we moved through it. So these were the issues that we found and that a lot of small system operators face. Once we completed the plan, we decided to, we moved the plan into, or just let me give you the outline for the plan, basically. 6 of the 8 towns that initially participated, of those 6 towns, 5 remained in the system. 1 decided not to participate, and then we asked 2 others to participate, and 1 of those did decide to participate. So we had, ultimately, we had about 7 people participating. We had a series of public involvement, multimedia presentations to prepare and communicate the strategic plan, including the vision, mission, and operational philosophies and values. So that was phase 1, was the development of the strategic plan and communication of the strategic plan. And phase 2 was the governance. Once we had the commitment to move forward, it was obvious that we were going to need some legal assistance to help us to develop the transfer agreements that would address how systems would be transferred, how assets would be transferred, to address franchises, and to address quite a laundry list of items that we needed to have the I's dotted and the T's crossed on. Phase 3 then, once the legal RFP was issued and we had counsel on board to help us from a legal perspective, was the development of the financial plan for startup in soft cost dollars. And this can be a challenging area. We found a lot of people were very supportive, obviously all the stakeholders, some of the financial institutions, most all of those were supportive, but very few were limited. We had lots of limitations on being able to raise soft costs to complete the startup of the project. And then phase 4 was developing the operational plan. And the key roles in that were having someone involved in the plan that understood utility operations and strategic planning, obviously the legal side, and also the accounting side. On the financial side, back to some of the issues, artificially low rates, we found that some of the municipal systems, in fact most of them, there was only one of the ultimate 5 municipal systems that decided to move forward with the system that had been making the necessary rate increases along that they needed to do to cover their costs. So most of the systems had artificially low rates, and there seemed to be a bias in a municipal system in some cases to not move forward with the necessary rate increases that will need to cover their costs. Lack of system growth, lack of a rate setting and budgeting process, and lack of cost-based rates and cost data. Then in the development of the plan, as you might imagine, each of the systems was starting from a different point with regard to the rates that they had, and not only the level of the rate for water and wastewater, but the structure and the design of those rates. So we had to address a plan to, over a 5-year period, get each town to rate parity. And that was addressed. That was one of the specific items in the transfer agreement, was to agree to have that resolved over a 5-year period. Financial advantages of regionalization, obviously economies of scale, procurement, being able to hire professional management, and also technical, have professional technical staff on board, and professional advice to assist with the rate study. We had a independent firm help complete a rate study to ensure objectivity, and then the development of a long-term capital plan. The ultimate vision that was created, and I mentioned this in the mission and the also the values, because it was so important in our planning phase to make sure that the elected officials understood what the issues were and understood what the vision was to that we wanted to achieve. And so our vision was simply to create a viable regional water system for Hampton County. And we'll go through some of the alternatives we looked at later on, but basically through the enabling legislation known as the Joint Water Sewer Systems Act. Obviously, our mission was to provide the water needs to improve the quality of life, economic development, so both quality of life targeted at consumers, economic development targeted at bringing in new jobs to the county, and then also on the environmental side, improving the viability of providing safe and clean water and wastewater to the region. I won't cover the details on each of these operating philosophy and value statements, but just to say that the board was 100% committed to making sure that these were communicated to the staff and were ingrained in the plan as we move forward. And just one example would be, in many parts of the startup, although the infrastructure was the same, we had an opportunity for a greenfield startup on all of the administrative, customer service, financial, accounting, and other processes that needed to be put in place. So we wanted to make sure that we took advantage of starting with the best practices when we created this. So these were the operating philosophy and values that were adopted, and you can read through those. But I do go back to our theme. My theme was that a rising tide floats all boats, and that each of the municipalities would benefit in the long run if they agreed to share resources and work together. And that was a major decision for some of the municipalities. There was some level of, I guess, concern of giving up their systems and what will we get in return. Well, on the other hand, with some of the symptoms that they were having, they were just at a point that they really needed to address this. So resolutions were passed. 5 of the 8 municipalities agreed to participate, plus the county agreed to participate. And in exchange for agreeing to participate and transfer assets, each of the municipalities was given an opportunity in our bylaws to assign, elect a member to be appointed to the board. So in terms of governance, the systems eventually were transferred, and then each of the municipalities and the county has a representative on the board. The business processes, we mentioned that we had an opportunity to create new business processes when we started this up, and that includes everything from one specific example was there were very few job descriptions for any of the key positions. We were able to put an organizational development plan in place, develop job descriptions to each key position, and then we went through an interview and selection process, and we were able to place everyone from the current companies, plus we hired a few outside staff in key positions to move the organization forward. But it was an opportunity as part of the plan to address each of these business processes in the technical, managerial, and financial area to move the organization forward. We acquired a new financial and accounting system, and we also had to start from the ground with a new benefit program for the employees. So just to give you some idea of the business processes that we addressed during the planning and implementation phase. Resultingly, as we mentioned, the towns of Gifford, Brunson, Hampton, Barnville, and Yemassee decided to participate. The board of directors was established, and we communicated to them that their role was for policy approval, resource development, governance, community development, and economic development, and we needed to allow the operational general manager and technical staff to focus on the day-to-day decision making. I talked earlier, once we got, prior to getting to the legal RFP phase, we really had to decide which structure would work best, and these are some of the multi-jurisdictional approaches that we evaluated, and resultingly we ended up, there's enabling legislation in South Carolina that allows for the formation of a joint municipal water sewer district. The advantage of us using this enabling legislation was it was achievable. A decision to create a joint system could be made by the elected officials from each of those participating members without a countywide referendum, which would have been required for a countywide water and sewer authority. And many of the other types of special purpose districts would require an act of the entire General Assembly, which would have just been a major obstacle to overcome when you have to have a public referendum or complete act of the entire General Assembly. So we felt the joint municipal water sewer system district enabling legislation was the best tool. This is the just kind of an outline of an excerpt of the study book that talked about the roles and functions that we've already mentioned of the board of directors. We talked about the governance. Each town, as I mentioned, was that participated was allowed to appoint a representative to the board. However, each seat had weighted voting, and the weighted voting in this particular organization, we decided the best way to do that was based on retail meter count. So it was done on retail meter count. So obviously, a larger participating member had more votes in the governance aspect of it. And then we mentioned the accounting, the legal, and the startup role for the engineer that played a key part in the development of the systems and the standards, the rate analysis, the organizational design, staffing, systems, and processes. Resultingly, the system was created, Lowcountry Regional Water System. We had created early on, tried to create a very positive public utility image for regionalization. So we had a logo created with each of the members' names in it. And as you also, I'm sure, are familiar, there's a spectrum of generic partnerships that are available to system operators, from informal cooperation to complete ownership transfer. In our case, there had been some attempts to contractually work out agreements, for instance, for licensed operators, but they were all problematic. Informal cooperation, while it was best intentioned, there never seemed to be enough momentum or technical capability on each side with which to bring it about. So resultingly, in June 1st of 2013, this system went into operation and is operating. The board meets monthly, and we do participate in the board meetings. And that's really just kind of a check of where we are time-wise, Tara. That's the end of the slide presentation. And just wanted to check and see if there were some questions that we could answer where we are.
Like there's any questions quite yet about your presentation, so I'll go on finishing up some reminders, and we'll see if some more come in and then direct them your way.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I just wanted to take this time to remind everyone that we have some upcoming webinars to look out for. On Wednesday, March 12th, we will have another one in this series titled Water System Partnerships and Regionalization Water Company. And then in the other leadership series, on Monday, February 24th, we will have part 1, translating data into effective communication. And then Wednesday, February 26th, part 2, about effective messaging. So you can go on right on to the EFC network website, which, as I mentioned before and is on the screen, efcnetwork.org, to register for those. So next, we are going to go on, and I'm going to ask you 2 more poll questions. So this concerns you guys if you would like to get some more information regarding this. So for systems with 1 or 10,000 or fewer customers, do you want one-on-one help with? So select as many of those as you feel you would like some additional information, and GoToWebinar will track this and we'll be able to reach out to you. So we'll give it a couple more seconds for everyone to see what they're interested in. All right. And then one more poll question. So a similar question, do you want more one-on-one help with any of these following? Please check all that apply. All right, we'll give it another couple seconds. All right. So that'll be it for the polls. And then just in conclusion, Glenn Barnes is actually the primary contact for this 4-part webinar series. So you can send any questions directly to Glenn, and then he can help you get them out to David or Fred concerning this presentation today. So I'm going to look, and I think we have at least 1 or 2 questions that we'll direct toward Fred. All right, Fred. Katie asked, community buy-in is a barrier to many water system mergers. Could you elaborate on what was involved in maintaining a positive public image?
Yeah, what was the first part of the question, Tara?
Community buy-in is a barrier to many water system mergers. Could you elaborate on what was involved in maintaining a positive public image?
Yes. And basically, first of all, I think there was generally, you know, a good bit of lack of understanding of what the issues that the current operators were facing. So one of the barriers to developing the community buy-in was to help them understand the issues that each of the utilities was facing, and that one example would be it was inevitable that rate increases were going to have to be made. So then the question becomes, can we, in the long run, are we better off by pooling our resources together and having less of a rate increase than by trying to stand alone and do it on our own, meaning each individual raising their own rates. So that was one example, and I think having the public involvement sessions that we had with each of the towns, and also educating the policymakers, and we had a video actually done that pretty much identified all the issues and identified also how regionalization could help solve those issues. Those were some of the tools and techniques that we used to assist with that. I will not say that there were not issues. There were issues, but I think they were managed effectively, and I believe in the long run that the entire county will be better off by being able to control its destiny with regard to its own water and wastewater infrastructure. So I hope that answered the question. If there's any other specifics, I'll be glad to try to address it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So another question, this one comes from Rob. What advice do you have for a third-party planner attempting to facilitate a merger between a county water system and a city system where the smaller city system is hesitant to participate in fear of losing control of system and loss of future profits?
Well, it goes back to the theme that a rising tide floats all boats, and that theme is aimed directly at helping elected officials understand the details of their specific circumstances and obtaining the political will necessary, because if you do not have the political will in all of these systems, if they're municipal systems, and in South Carolina you use the enabling legislation, then the elected officials have to vote to agree. Well, first of all, you have to obviously have a rationale of how you will resolve the problem, but ultimately it comes down to a vote of the council and the elected officials, and in some cases even one of the premier. I mean, it was a 3-to-1. The mayor had to cast a tie-breaking vote. So it does come back to political will, and the only way to really address the political will is by doing a good job of educating the policy makers and the decision makers regarding the circumstances of their systems. And in these cases, there were some fairly dire situations with regard to regulatory compliance, with regard to the financial condition of each of the systems. And so I would say, you know, ultimately, if you don't have the political will, you can have the best plan in the world, but it's not going to go anywhere if it's a municipal system, and you have to have those votes. So.
Okay, thank you. Another question. This one is from Ann. Did you have pushback from associations that would be losing numbers, like Association of Utility Districts?
There were, you know, in summary, there were 8 municipalities in the town plus the county. 5 of the municipalities ultimately agreed to participate. So in some ways, there were pushback from the participants that did want to participate, but there was not there's not a separate, public service district in that area that was competition with these 8 municipalities. So there was no pushback. There was some interest by some of the neighboring public service districts about what was going on. And particularly, I think there was some interest in some of the growth areas, but the way their charters were written is they were assigned to adjacent counties through the enabling legislation, and for them to come into Hampton County would have mean they would have had to have changes to their enabling legislation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, this looks like the last question, or that was the last question directly related to your presentation. So I want to thank you for your time, Fred. We really appreciate it. And
I'm glad to do it, and thank you so much for allowing me to participate.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who participated in this. You can look for the recording up online in the next day or two on EFCN Network or efcnetwork.org and under past trainings and today's date. So thank you for your time. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, this looks like the last question, or that was the last question directly related to your presentation. So I want to thank you for your time, Fred. We really appreciate it. And
I'm glad to do it, and thank you so much for allowing me to participate.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who participated in this. You can look for the recording up online in the next day or two on EFCN Network or efcnetwork.org and under past trainings and today's date. So thank you for your time.